right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad all of you could make it. We are thrilled to have Pamela with us. She is a friend of CIBC and has been for years, and they come occasionally to spend some time, vacation time here on the coast, and they join our church whenever they're here. I don't want to talk too much, but we are so glad that she's here.
Well, I'd like to just ask where everybody's from before we start. So it'd be good for me to know where everybody is from and where they're Zooming from. Are they at home or are they on the coast or whatever? I'm very jealous for those who are on the coast, can I say? So I'm starting off with professional. And then we'll just pray and be still, and if you could read God's word first. So I'd really love you to interact or to say, hold on a minute, or ask you, just to do that. So just to be still and to learn from one another and just to be quiet. I know that we've only maybe got some of us here 40 minutes before we move on, but 40 minutes is a long time. So let's just all feel that we can add or ask questions at any time. Let's have a time of fellowship rather than Zoom. I think a lot of us maybe have been on our own a lot, and let's be happy to talk. I don't really know what you know about me. I mean, I wasn't brought up as a Christian. I came to faith in my mid-20s and got my first Bible really in my mid-20s. I'm from Northern Ireland, and I have a Roman Catholic father and a Roman Protestant mother, which was quite difficult at times here. I grew up in a place called Reentry, where there's a lot of troubles. My father was in the police there, and saw a lot of conflict, and just knew that there was had to be something more to life. So as I got older, I did all the normal, well, maybe not normal for everybody, but I did the alcohol and all the music and the drugs and everything that goes with that. And eventually I married a Christian man and started going to church. So as I got into the gospel and learned who Jesus was, I really fell in love with Jesus and the man, I'd have to say, and didn't understand his sovereignty or that he was his divine nature until I read the word. I had to get into, but I fell in love with Jesus and wanted to serve him, wanted him to actually be my husband and to be my guide. And so when I said my children grew up with 3 children, and I thought I really want to do what the Lord wants me to do and be available totally for him. And I have quite an unusual personality, at least my husband tells me that all the time, in that I love going to places where other people don't go. I like to go and visit churches where other people can't get to. So I ended up serving in the persecuted church and being sent to many places around the world where it's COVID all the time, if you like. You can't meet with other Christians, you can't meet in church, you can't do anything. The organisation that I worked with, they would have sent me to spend time with widows whose husbands had been martyred for their faith. And it was a real enlightening time for me, and a time of coming back to Northern Ireland and living in Bangor, where I live now, a nice seaside town, going to a nice church, and people maybe just wanting to discuss the colour of the inside of the church and, debating it and things like that. So very different balances of Christianity, really, in my life. So one of the things I'd say about my story was making myself totally available to the Lord and him giving me these amazing opportunities. And I do feel very strongly that if you say to God, here I am, that he takes you at your word, if your heart. I believe it passionately. I mean, I'm 60 and I just, people say to me, are you going to go back? Are you going back? I was in Syria last year, and are you going to go back? And I said, only if the Lord opens the door and wants me to go back for purpose. But I have a real passion and a love for the Muslim people. And you take Islam and spell it, and you say, I sincerely love all Muslims. it's a great way to say you don't particularly like the teachings of Islam, which I would totally concur with. But I love the Muslim people because they are God seekers. I have met so many people who I've met and they've whispered in my ear, I know Jesus. I've met secret believers, I've met wives and their husbands don't know. Last year in North Africa, there was baptisms of women and their husbands didn't know they had come to faith. So just really how God is really working. And I just feel that we have so much to learn from that. I have to say, I have a real love for your church. I love Callahonda Baptist Church. I love when you go to the door and there's the welcome that you get there. And I mean, I was going to read Psalm 1 because I remember Ken Oates preaching in Psalm 1 many years ago on the most fantastic illustrations about the rope secretary, and just it really impacted me. So I've had really good grounding and teaching from Sam and Ken and different pastors that I've met who've been there. And I really pray, I know that you're looking for a pastor, I really pray that is the case, but you are a really blessed church. When you're going back, you can look on, but from an outsider looking in, it's an oasis to come to when you've travelled to different places. And even if you come from your own church to go somewhere different, and it's even the size of the building is it's embracing. And so I thank you for your church, and I thank you for the gift that God has given to me in that jewel in Callahonda. But I think that one of the things that I would like to talk about is that when COVID came, I was in the Middle East in March last year, and they'd asked me to do their devotions in a Baptist seminary, and there were about 40 people there. And I said, well, come in and let's be still before the Lord. And I said, turn your phones off. Now, I don't know if it's the same in Spain, but every single person in the Middle East has a phone, and it's kind of like as if it's velcroed to their hands. And I said, could you please turn your phones off? Let's turn. And they said, oh, we're waiting for this. And I said, turn your phones off. We're in the presence of a king. Let's just turn them off. And they said, we don't do that. And I said, if we don't do that, God will make us stop. And the church is going at this time so busy and so everything. And 3 weeks later, one of them turned around, sent me a text and said, prophetic, be still and know that I'm God. Lockdown hit. And I think that God is, this time has come to us, and I don't want to miss it. I want to know what God is teaching, and not to look on it as a negative. I mean, it is negative. I was saying to Yaz, our coffee shops aren't open. We can't go for a cup of coffee. We can't meet anybody unless we're out for a walk. We can't have anybody in our homes. There's no hairdressers. There's no shops. We have only just started allowing click and collect again. Go to takeaways. We have really had a strict lockdown, and the numbers here actually are not too bad. There's certain little pockets where people are not really doing what they should be doing, but the numbers aren't too bad. But one of the things I'd say is, in a way, thank God for our stillness, because this will never come back to us. And one of the things that I would say is, when lockdown last year, we had the most beautiful weather. I live on the coast, and we had the most beautiful weather. We were out walking, and I loved it. I just said, this is great. And all the traveling that I've been doing, it all had to stop. And I felt rested. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't miss church. I didn't mind doing church on Zoom. I didn't mind not going to church. I didn't mind anything. And I kind of felt that, we were having a time of just a time of peace. I don't know whether or not you felt that or not. We moved to a new house, and when we went to neighbours and we said, look, we've just moved in, but if you get stuck, this is our telephone number. If you need anything, give us a ring, because there's some elderly. We would never have done that ordinarily if we'd moved in. We had this going out and clapping for the NHS. I don't know whether you did that in Spain, but we got speaking to different people. And in our street, we're the only Christians. There's no Christians near us. And so we were able to kind of, people are saying, oh, well, this is terrible, this is terrible. And I am saying that COVID is terrible. Our daughter is a respiratory doctor in the city hospital, and she was saying that people are suffocating. It's a horrible disease. So in no way am I undermining the suffering that went on with this. But God is sovereign, and I think that many people who are now being faced with their mortality, that their families were being snatched away. We couldn't see each other. And I actually liked having my church that I could come in the morning and have a cup of coffee and watch it in my pajamas, or I could walk the dogs and come back and not have showered and watch it and have a cup of coffee and everything this. But as time went on, I kind of felt this, with me not missing church, there's something wrong here. As a fellowship, there is something wrong not wanting to meet together. And God wants to build his church and build his people. And if you, in Hebrews 10, 23 to 25, it says, let's hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he has promised he's faithful. And let us consider how we can spur one another on towards love and good deeds. Let us not give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. I felt rebuked by that. I felt, why do I not want to meet other Christians? Why am I happy with this? Something is definitely wrong. And I needed to refocus myself on Jesus and be still before him. And the thing that Jesus showed very clearly to me is the only way to really refocus is through the scriptures and through the gospel and reading, bringing me right back to who he was. So I'm speaking to myself. When it came to socially distancing, I suddenly realized in church, I've been doing this for years. Social distancing is not new to me. I was doing trips and meeting in other churches, not really engaging with my own fellowship, but not guarding myself, not being accountable to anybody, not going to a fellowship in a church is a dangerous thing. Not seeing hurting people at home, seeing misery all around in other countries, but not seeing it in my own church or looking for it. And that others weren't noticing that I was crumbling at times. And so I would have to say that I was socially distancing in church. And Northern Ireland is a very respectable church-going place. Sure, Irene would agree that a lot of people go to church and it's a very respectable. Within Christian families, there is a respectability. And because I didn't come from a Christian family, we called each other out. If we were doing something that was wrong, we would have said, or if something happened, we would have asked how they were doing. But what I found in Christian families that I met in Northern Ireland, within even, because John's family were Christian families, was past hurts never dealt with. Things from the past that, let's not talk about it and it'll go away. And it's not true. It's not true. We wear masks in Northern Ireland, and I think in most churches, because they say, how are you doing? I'm fine. How are you? Mm-hmm. And, it's just, we just don't listen, or we don't see, we don't look. And I have had to really come to grips with this. So I think that we need, through COVID and not being able to meet, we need to be different when we go back to our churches. Maybe Callahan is different. Certainly, I feel that we need to take the masks off when we're allowed. Obviously not at the moment, but I'm talking about the invisible mask of respectability that Christians say, I'm making a mess. My marriage is not working. I'm having a terrible time. My teenagers are giving me jip. One's doing drugs, one's doing this. This was me, so I am okay. Or financially, I am in difficulties and I need any prayer. I mean, if we believe that God is sovereign, he will bless us. He will bless openness. And Jesus was open about everything and honest. And I think we need to be very open, and even about past hurts and past things that have happened. I don't think that if you're holding a grudge against somebody that you go and you say, actually, I've held a grudge for you for years. That's not the sort of thing. I think that we need to let go. One of the things that I would say that I learned, or I'm learning, I would say, through lockdown, is that I have a very high expectation of other people. Very high expectation of other people, which is unrealistic. But I wonder, do I have the same high expectations for myself? I expect people to know how I'm feeling. And they're thinking this and I'm thinking that, and and you have this conversation in your head, which is totally fabricated. It's not. So I think that one of the things that I would say that COVID has taught me is that I've always socially distanced and I've always worn a mask. Probably less so with John's family, because I think that they find me quite difficult, because I'll ask somebody something and say, explain that, why, or you don't have, why did you not tell me, or why was that not open? What is godly about not opening up? And my mother-in-law was in church every Sunday. She's a lovely lady. She read her Bible every single day. She had a mother of sons, and she was totally devoted to her boys. And she died of COVID about 6 weeks ago, 97. But when she died, everybody, her funeral was one of her brothers did a dedication to her and or tribute to her, and it was online. And some people were coming to me and saying, your mother-in-law was such a godly woman and so lovely and so beautiful. And I really struggled with it, because I thought, no, she wasn't Mother Teresa at all. You weren't married to her son. You don't know what it was like. You don't know what, and I got actually quite upset. I kind of got quite, that's lovely. And I did have affection for her. And the last year of her life, we weren't allowed to see a lot of her because of COVID. And I was sad for her. And John had lost his mother, and I had become affectionate to her, but I had totally withdrawn from her, as has one of my other sister-in-laws. And my own children were so good to her, but there was always because she was very the best. You couldn't go and tell her you had failed at anything. It always had to succeed. Everybody had to succeed, and her grandchildren. So, that old hurt came back. And I thought, God, I have to really repent of that, because here's the woman who's even dead, and she can still bug me. That was just an awful thing. But I do think that we need to cut ourselves some slack as well when it comes to this, because we are forgiven totally. And I have a quote, which is from Holy Trinity Brompton, and it is about, we are totally forgiven, but we must forgive others. And I really feel that's very strongly that when I go back into church, I want to embrace the people in the church. I would like there to be a forgiveness for one another. And I would like there to be, just a real new openness after COVID, even within families, and that we learn. And the other thing is to learn to forgive ourselves as well, and to cut ourselves a little bit of slack. I think sometimes God forgives us and we move on, but we actually don't forgive ourselves. So I think that that's a very real thing for me to forgive myself for feelings that I have. But in 1 Peter 4, verse 8, we read, above all things, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. And it's on about hospitality to the poor and to do all of these things. And we are so blessed to be able to be in churches. And I don't think I really appreciate it from visiting other churches across the world. and seeing them not being able to have fellowship, I didn't really appreciate how difficult that actually is. And, we'd pick and choose, will I go on Sunday or not, or maybe not. I'll go to the beach, or I'll go to this, that, or the other. So I really feel that God is challenging us over COVID. And, I think that it's something that I would love to think that we would all grow because of it. But I really want it to be something that we don't miss. The church doesn't miss it. And we've stopped and we're rested. I mean, I am on WhatsApp and Zoom meetings and in devotion meetings in the Middle East and everything like that. And it's great. Technology is been amazing, but it's not the same as being able to sit beside somebody and have a chat or the tea in the foyer or whatever afterwards, or arrange to see somebody during the week or at a tapas bar. It's not the same, because that's when you chat and you talk. So I think that's really what I wanted to share, and I really felt I want to share. One of the things I'd really thank you for was when I was doing this, I texted some ladies that I knew in church and said, what have you learnt over lockdown about yourself, positively or negatively? And all of them had said at the beginning they didn't miss church, and now they're wanting to sing. They want to have communion. They want to spend time with each other. And we have a new minister who's just started during lockdown, dear Liam, and he's such a pastoral heart. And I just think God brought him to us for after this, because lots of people are going to have mental health issues. We have very good friends who are very confident, and they are now nervous about going out. What are people who are locked in? Are we going to be more sympathetic to those who can't get to church? Are we going to be more aware of people who have special needs, and really, are we going to open ourselves up and become brothers and sisters rather than just mates that meet at church? So that would be my kind of little thing with you this morning. As anybody, and how do you feel? I mean, your church is very different. We're still not meeting. We can't meet in the building. I say we can't meet anywhere here in Northern Ireland at the minute, and it's going to be reviewed at the 1st of April. But, how have you found lockdown and being by yourself?
If I may speak there, I'm sorry, forgive me, I don't know your name. You just come up as John.
John's my husband. Pamela, I'm Pamela.
Pamela, nice to meet you, Pamela. Thank you for your talk. Just getting back on where you were saying you were having troubles with coming to terms with certain things with your mother-in-law and how you felt. And I think the lockdown has had a huge effect on people's mentality wise, where they've reissued themselves, they've stopped, readdressed themselves. I think a lot of people have become a little bit more humble. Thought, thank you, Lord, for this. We've got this, because we've been pushed into we've seen people's experiences where people are seriously suffering and in destitute situations now. And I think it reassesses how we are with people. I think you have to be a little bit more humble. People are suffering. One example from my side, my tenants haven't paid the rent for 3 months. I've sat back and said, you know what, it's fine, in your own time. And he's been more than grateful for that. And in other circumstances, I would have probably thought, he's probably trying to pull a fast one on me. What's he trying to do? Because I've rented for 15 years my house. And I'm always nervous, who's going to pull a fast one here now from experiences. And I've been totally different on lockdown. I've really readdressed and thought, people are really struggling. They can't put food on the table. They can't really just go and have a coffee with someone without counting the pennies. People are really, really destitute. So for me, I've addressed people's issues a bit differently now, and think not panic so quickly, and thought, well, everyone's in the same situation with finances now. Not everyone can just go out and have, lunch like before, and pay the rent, or is behind on his electric bills and water. And people have coming through. I'm a stylist, a hairdresser, so I have a lot of traffic. A lot of people tell me stories, and people have really struggled, and that's over everything. I mean, and going back to the church, it's wonderful, our churches. It's amazing, because I get a lot of self-satisfaction out of going out to the church. But I like to sing, and I don't like singing with my mask on. So I find if I have my service online, I can sing and feel like I enjoy it more. But yes, I do miss where we can go and hug each other and have coffee together and really lift each other up that way. And it's very important. But that's a phase where I think we've just got to run its course till we can take the mask off and all get back together. So it's being positive and think it's just going to run its course. Everyone gets the vaccines and we get back on schedule. It's really trying to keep positive. And this is what I try and install to a lot of my clients. Stay positive, we're fine, we'll just get through it. I've been really, really blessed that COVID's not touched my home. Considering the traffic I have, I feel really blessed there. But I have a lot of girlfriends who've had COVID, and they just go to the gym and back, and they seem to have got this COVID. So far, we have to count the blessings daily and really be grateful for what people, what we have, and how we just cope through life, really. I think everyone agrees. We're all getting through it day by day.
Simone, can I ask, have you find it easier to share your faith because you're speaking to people who are desperate? Have you been able to pray with people or offer, or has it helped?
I have indeed, yeah. And I give a lot of discount for people who I know are suffering. And so I feel I can help the community through my way, where I can give them a little treat and not charge so much. But we do have a little prayer to some of my clients. I say, if you don't mind, and just have faith. I mean, there's a lot of clients I have who aren't believers as well. That doesn't bother me. Yeah. I still talk how I talk. And I say, well, the good Lord has obviously provided you with this. I kind of turn stuff around because I think it's important. People forget, they focus on the negative a lot. And I try and bring back more of a positiveness to think, well, thank the Lord we've got this and we've been given this. I thank my blessings daily for what I have.
Very good.
Yeah, Pamela, I mean, we experienced lockdown in Spain. We were stuck there from January through to June. So we experienced lockdown in Spain, and we're now in lockdown here in the UK. And they're different experiences. We've not been in church since last March because of Terry's age and my underlying health issues. And we both second vaccine yesterday, so we're both fully inoculated. And we said when we get back to Spain, when we're allowed, we will start going to church. But I agree with you. I've enjoyed church online. I've enjoyed phenomenal teaching, wonderful Doreen and Ken's singing. We could do it at a point in the day when after we've walked the dog, rather than having to rush, walk the dog quickly, to, get showered, dressed and drive 30 minutes to Calahonda. But there is that missing of being together. But one of the things that COVID has done, because our church and that we all live along this strip. So from where Doreen and Ken live to where we live, it's over an hour's drive between the two destinations. And one of the blessings that has come out of COVID for me, for CIBC, is the Tuesday night prayer meetings. Now, we've struggled as a church because of the distances that everybody lives to get people to come to midweek meetings. Ladies' Bible studies usually been well supported, but prayer meetings have been something that, oh dear, forgot prayer meeting tonight. It was at 7:00 and we hadn't had dinner and blah, blah, blah. Our prayer meetings on a Tuesday night have been phenomenal. because we've had an opportunity to listen to people suffering. You know, the start of the prayer meeting is almost longer than the prayers itself, because people have gone round the screen sharing the circumstances that they find themselves in. And that to us has been almost as big a blessing as the prayers themselves, because we can take those things away and say, well, we'll pray about that. You know, we heard of, I think it was Simone who shared about this lady who's diabetic and has got to have both her legs amputated. And that's something absolutely major in somebody's life. And you can take that away and pray about it. Had we been face to face before COVID, I don't think that circumstance would have happened, because firstly, the prayer meeting was poorly supported and people just got on with their lives. Whereas for us, it's like 5 o'clock UK time, 6 o'clock Spanish time, Tuesday night. It's locked in stone. We do prayer meeting every Tuesday. And that has been an absolute blessing, where we've been able to share lots of people's circumstances. So yeah.
So I think that there's many things that we've learned, haven't we, from the difficulty that everyone has experienced, and something we can carry forward. I think, Valerie, like that, it's something we could still continue if that works better and is supported better from it. But I do think now that we've got to the time that gradually we need to be really thinking of the church family and getting together. I think it's something we really need to be praying about, that we do it correctly and safely. But there's nothing like the church family together. You know, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to go. And there's been a few of us that have been able to go. But, you know, I just walked in the church last week and, you know, I was just so pleased to be there and in the sanctuary. You know, and as people came, I just wanted to hug them. We can't and we don't, and we're very careful, but and we still need to be careful. But I think it's something like, I think Pamela has said, we need to be now thinking slightly differently and carefully for us to be getting back as a family, a church family. And also, it's very easy to sit and watch it at home, but somebody else has had to do it. You know, it's just a few people that have taken the load of producing those great services. And it's good for the church family to be actually involved and helping with it, being really, if they're members of the church, to be really part of it and able to do the reading one week or something like that. So it's been a year. I think we've learned a lot. It's been hard for everybody in different ways.
Yeah. It's that balance, isn't it? It's between grieving what was lost during this year, but yet remembering to ask the question, Lord, what is in this? What did you want me to learn? What do you want me to learn? And it's that balance, right? Because there have been things lost. I mean, obviously the most obvious, life, but then with people's mental health and just lives being on pause. But I think it's still worthy of asking those questions. And I think it's interesting, Pamela, what you shared about you were social distancing in church, even when you could go, and this sort of forced you and said, wait a minute, what was that all about? What, Lord, something has to change here. And remembering that we're not, in a sense, this is not something to get through. This is the life that God has given us. He is sovereign. He has ordained this time. So what is this about? What is each day about? Not what's it about until we get to when everything's open and everyone has the vaccine. God has something for us today. At least that, I feel like that's what he was teaching me. It's not about getting through to that next point. It's about, God, what are you teaching me today? What do you have for me today? And what do I need to learn? What are you trying to teach me? And remaining open and humble to learn those lessons. At least that was just something that has been going through my mind, that it is a balance too.
Can I ask, when we go out with the dogs and we're walking at the dogs, and we have people who obviously are on their own all day, but they want to chat, they want to talk. So you're having deeper conversations with complete strangers.
Yes.
We've had people phoning us from the church who are struggling and depressed or whatever. And they've said, you know, years ago I had a nervous breakdown, or I had mental health issues, and I think I've known you all these years and I didn't know that. You know, and I'm saying, you know, we really need to be much more aware of what people are struggling through. And I mean, I don't know about Spain, but domestic violence has risen in the UK. And, you know, more food banks are needed. And now I was talking to somebody actually and said, look, it's coming up to Easter. What do the food banks need at the moment? And they said, well, because of this, our government have extended universal credits. They said, actually, the need has gone down a bit. But people are saying, I'm really in need now. And I think that we had maybe within our churches that we maybe didn't want to share that. And we have a very good friend who's a solicitor as well. And I said to him, well, you'll not be doing lots of conveyancing with houses and things. And he says, well, he is quite busy, but he says there's lots of divorces.
Pamela, we live in an apartment building in the UK, and there are 20 apartments. And we calculated in the building, there are 10 people that are on their own. They're either widowed or widowers. It's a seniors over 65. And so I make a point of trying to phone at least 3 of these people that I'm in touch, these ladies that I'm in touch with. And like you say, you walk your dog and you meet somebody. And we met one of our neighbours, actually. She's a lady who's got a voice box. She's had cancer and she's got a voice box. And so she finds talking on the phone very, very difficult because of this voice box. And we bumped into her at a place where we can walk our dog and buy a takeaway coffee and walk back. So we sat on this wall and I was chatting to Liz, and it turned out, she said she was almost suicidal in the first lockdown in England. And I said to her, oh, Liz, I'm so sorry to hear that. And she said, but I can't phone people up because my voice box, it's very difficult. So I've made a mental note now that as of this week, we're allowed to walk with somebody and have a coffee. I'm going to go and walk with her because I didn't know that. She's a lady on her own. But, you know, 10 people in this building are all by themselves and are all locked in. And they're all over 65. So they're all worried about COVID. And, you know, they range in age. I mean, we've got 2 young widows in this building. One is only just over 60. We've got to be 55. She's only in her late 50s and she's a widow. You know, so there are lots of hurting people and are feeling more and more. And of course, the more you watch on TV about COVID, for some people, that's so frightening that they become more and more insular because they're so frightened about going outside. So I just tell them I'm praying for them and I'm trying to help and what have you. But you can't connect with these people in the way that you would be, where you'd say, come in and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think also that for all of us, we know everybody is suffering. Yeah. So it's very difficult to be telling other people about our needs because everyone is in need. I think, particularly probably being British, we're very reticent with that sort of thing. You know, I find it hard to tell other people how difficult I'm finding it because I know they're finding it difficult. You know, it seems as if you're just very selfish and just thinking of yourself, and yet everybody has struggled in different ways. So I think that's doubled it as well. That's amplified it to make it more difficult to share. And as Valerie said, you know, we have been able to, you know, in our prayers, and more than we would have done on a Sunday morning and praying at church. Yeah, I think that's another thing that holds us back. We all say, yes, I'm fine. And then a friend might say to you, yeah, but how are you really? Exactly. And then you might, you know, but that doesn't always happen. It's usually, oh, I'm fine. Great. You know, that is just how we are, isn't it? Unfortunately. But that's something we perhaps need to look at.
No, I think that needs to change, Mary. You know, I can really agree with an awful lot of what Pamela said this morning. And I mean, I know she's brought up in the same culture exactly as I have been for so many years. and past hurts have not been dealt with. And we do need to be different and take those masks off. And I'm not talking about the COVID mask. I know my husband has preached before on that same thing. How are you? Oh, I'm fine, but you're not fine at all. And that's a lie. And there's no point saying we're Christians and telling that lie. We need this transparency. We need to be open. We need to be honest. And I know a lot of people have said about this COVID that, oh, this will make a difference. But I'm sorry, very often I cannot see this difference, because I know in my own situation here, where I struggle with my health day and daily, I don't get very much support from very few people. I mean, I long to be back in Spain. I need the sunshine. Some people think they need the sunshine. I need the sunshine for my health issues. And I'm stuck here. And I am afraid. I have been a person, when I was in Spain gloriously from August to December, we were out every day, frightened, but was able to be out. But back here, where people have not that mentality of wisdom, of obeying these rules. So many people do not wear their masks back here. And the very few times I have been out in the past 10 weeks, hardly anybody is wearing their mask. And that makes me very afraid to go out. And I will not go into a shop until I have my 2 vaccines. And I have not been in one shop in the past 10 weeks. And if I only walk where I know I am not going to see anybody.
Yeah. It is very different, Irene.
Bless you for sharing that, Irene.
Yeah.
Bless you for sharing that, Irene.
Yeah.
We hear you.
The other thing about opening up, Mary, I think that if you say to someone, how are you doing this? If I say, oh, I'm not fine, I'm not so good.
I can't hear. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, Pamela.
I think that sometimes if somebody says to you, how are you doing? You say, I'm not doing so well. You're actually opening a door for them to respond to that by saying, I'm not fine. I think that was one of the things. I mean, if like in some of the countries, in the Middle East, if you are, they just ask you it as it is. You're not looking great. I mean, it's just, are you sick? And it's not, and they're very blunt. It's very on PC. And it's just like, it's like a relief that you can actually, they're not trying to say the right thing and everything. And I think we have a lot to learn. But I do think that we have to start with ourselves. I can't go into church and expect someone else to have changed through COVID. I have to go back and say, my attitude has to change, and say, if someone says to me, Irene, my husband is exactly the same as you. He's been ill for 16 years, and we go to Spain, and he says, I don't want the sun, I need the sunshine. And I would say, because sometimes I just love to go, I can go on a walking holiday here and things like that. And he just says, I need the heat. But many a time I go to church and they'll say, how's John keeping? And John has been maybe unwell. And for COVID, he was in the Royal every week for a day. And he gets a treatment in the Royal. It was at 7:30 in the morning until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But nobody said to me, how are you coping with that? And he's great. He is the best patient you could ever meet. So, and I really, but people not say, you can't go away for 2 weeks to Spain now. He's in hospital every other week. I can't do 2 weeks in Spain. We can only do, so we have booked Spain. I'm going out a few days before him so I can have a bit longer but we have now got to readjust our whole life. And it's tiring and it's changing, but people don't say, how are you coping with that? Except, as you say, Mary, your good friends will say, I'm sure you're a cheese dog. Yep. And I book a few days away, and John said, ask my treatment. I can't go. I have a doctor's appointment, I have this appointment. And every week he gets tested for COVID. He doesn't obviously have COVID, but he's to get tested. And it's just our whole weeks, our doctors. So I think that it has made me aware of, well, do I really ask other people? Do I know, how do they read my mind? How do they say, I'm fed up? So, I think non-Christians have it, actually, in their honesty and being blunt.
Absolutely.
I have a friend who's working in a Christian organisation for about 12 years now, And he said he was in the law for 3 years for 3 different firms. And he says, I actually find secular easier because people will tell you to wise up, or they're not have to say it, and you just say it and get over it. So I think we actually need to learn, like, let's be brothers and sisters and realize that all families are dysfunctional. Every family is dysfunctional. I just don't, anybody tells me they have no problems in their family, I say, well, if you don't have one yet, it's coming. It's just there. Every family is dysfunctional, even the royals. We've seen that. You know, I think every family is dysfunctional, and a church family is going to be equally dysfunctional. But we have to love each other. Like, but you know what I mean? God. Jesus calls us that this is what you have to do. It's not an optional thing. So I'm excited to get back to church. I'm excited with a new pastor, and I'm excited because people are really wanting to go back. It's like the kids going to school. They're skipping to school this week, and there's nobody not wanting to go to school. And you know, the kids are all wanting. We've just, our schools opened up for the first time. For P1 to P3, so the very junior schools. So I think that we can make it an exciting time, and a time to. Our church had 1,700 hits on a Sunday morning, and thinking, well, are we ready to bring people who have done the hit to come into our church, and or do we bring them back in and we expect them to behave as church, do church? So,
Pamela, what's uplifting, if I may just add to everyone, because it uplifted me immensely, that I have a big family and a lot of friends in Australia, and Australia's economy is booming right now, and people not wearing masks, of course, they've had all their issues of getting the numbers down, but there's a lot of parts of Australia where they are just really in full swing right now. It's so uplifting to hear that life is getting back to normal. It's definitely back to normal in Australia, certain parts anyhow. And what people are finding, that they can't leave or enter Australia like most places, but especially there, really strict lockdown on people entering the country. They're finding they're reinvesting their money instead of coming overseas back into the economy, and it's really growing right now. It was so comforting to hear that, you know, they are really thriving, and there's hope for the rest of the world when it's like that. You know, when you see a country thriving, I think it's going to have a follow-on effect now coming into Europe. It's got to. I just feel it was really uplifting for me to hear that yesterday. It was positive, you know.
It's always good. It's always good to have good news rather than just.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It was great because they were like, business is great. I've opened my second business, and people are reinvesting now back into Australia, not outside. And I just think, well, that's great. Hopefully, England should take a tick on that box and reinvest the money back into their own country there. You know, absolutely. I don't know how you feel on that, Valerie, because I'm not in England, but I hear a lot of negative stuff from England.
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think I just think that God has got us to this point, as Doreen said. This is not a surprise to God, and I just think that what is so wonderful, again, using technology, and you know, Yaz has started, you know, connecting with people on Facebook. You know, the wonderful thing about being using church by Zoom is that you're invisible, in as much as if you've never put your foot inside a church door, you can do this quietly in the comfort of your own home. And I'm hoping that God is using this as a way of spreading the gospel, because it certainly, and according to the press in the UK, Church of England churches are getting huge numbers of hits on their websites. In England anyway, I can only comment on England, and I think that's wonderful. If that then, but you do need these people that are, you know, putting their toe in the water, that they need to be discipled and nurtured and what have you, and you can only really do that by actually physically connecting in a church. So I'm praying that really God is using this time to reach out to people who are searching and who are on their own and alone, and maybe got nothing better to do than surf the net, and oh, that looks interesting, that's a church. Gosh, I had a friend say to me not very long ago, gosh, your music is so nice. I always imagine, church music to be organs and dirges, and, people have got a misconception. It's unlike Ireland, where everybody in Ireland has been churched. They may not be Christians, but they've been churched. In England, that's not the case. People don't go to church. They're not taken to church as children, certainly not anymore. There is such a multicultural society here in England that people don't send their children to Sunday school, even if they don't go. Whereas that was what it was like when I was a child.
Yeah.
It's not like that now. So I think if people are finding God through technology, because of Zoom, because of COVID, I think that's fantastic. And if that's going to be the start of a revival, then bring it on, I say, because I think it's marvelous.
Absolutely. I know some people have had to leave already, but I was wondering if anyone has any questions for Pamela that during her testimony that popped into their mind or anything. I hope you don't mind me popping in here and kind of taking over, but I just was curious if anyone had any questions for her.
Pamela, I've got one, actually. I remember meeting you and John just after you came back from northern Nigeria, and you'd had a really difficult time meeting some of the women who had their husbands and their sons taken, and there were women that were left not able to cope with their family, and you found the re-entry back into civilized society really difficult. Is that still a situation, or do you find that the more you see it, you become a little desensitized, or is it still that huge shock for you?
No, I think that, I do pray very regularly that God would keep my heart as flesh, and you're meeting people, you're meeting individuals, and I think you'd have to become very hard-hearted. I don't know about you, but our news is nothing but COVID. It's nearly like the whole, and now Meghan and Harry, it's as if nothing in the whole world is happening. And, a couple of weeks in Nigeria, 2 weeks ago, 300 girls were taken.
Yes.
And, you have these things happening. You think, what's this about? Do we listen to indulged people who are wealthy and have been offended? Or do we say, look, this world, we need to hear what's going on? So I think, no, I think that as I went for a long time, and actually I probably didn't deal with it well when I came back, and there was like a build-up of meeting people. And I remember going to Colombia, and in the jungle area in Colombia, and meeting with a woman, and I just couldn't get her out of my head for a very long time. And and then you're moving on to something else. So I think that you have to process that, and I think probably, I didn't do it well. I didn't know how to do it well. And when you do meetings, you're actually sharing with folks. But yeah, no, I don't. I think that I regularly revisit the people that I've been with in my mind and things. But I think that's good. I think that it means that God puts them on your heart to pray for them, and countries. And we had a North Korean lady staying with us who'd been in a gulag in North Korea. And she was staying in our house, and it was one of the most humbling experiences that I ever had. And she was so joy in people that had really suffered, actually, and their God is real. God is not you pick and choose on a Sunday or whatever. God is very real to people. So and sometimes coming back to Northern Ireland, or the West, maybe it's like a bit of a flat jacket, weight put on your shoulders, and yet when you go to those people, it's lifted off, and there's a joy, and they're so pleased to see you, and they want fellowship with you, and it's hard to leave them.
Yeah.
So,
I just tying in with that, I think that with COVID, although it has been a world experience for the whole world, we haven't heard much about the world. You know, on the news and the television, it's COVID. You know, within your town, etc. There may be the odd thing, but we know so little about the rest of the world at the moment, and on different issues.
I don't know where Burnsley is in England, but actually I'll send it to Yaz on a WhatsApp because it was sent to me by a consultant doctor, and about the street preacher in Burnsley and about the poverty there. And this is England, I was really, really shocked by it. This was yesterday. And I actually wept, and I sent it to our fellowship group, where people couldn't afford to get the bodies from the hospital of people who had died of COVID.
Yeah.
They were picking up ashes, and the street pastor, who had been a drug addict himself, has taken over JB Sports, and he is having a church, and it's like a table, and he is having funeral services for these people who have nothing.
Yeah.
So I'll send it to Yaz, and she can maybe put it up on your WhatsApp group. It's a BBC give them 5 minutes from the national news, which I was.
I think I saw that.
I saw it too.
I saw that as well. Yeah. But you know, we hear nothing about the persecuted people around the world now, but either Christianity or anything else. I forget the name of the magazine that I have. It's in church. It begins with B, Barnade or something.
Barnabas, yeah.
That's it. And I mean, you just have to read that and the persecution that is going on in the world. You know, and yet we never hear anything about that. All we hear on the BBC or ITV is COVID, you know.
I mean,
I just think that's the same, because that's separated us. Although we've had COVID in common throughout the world, we've actually been more separated from the world.
I was in North Africa last March, and we did it was North Africa, very close countries, and it was from Muslim believers. We were doing training, Christianity Explored, and the church in these countries were growing phenomenally. We did it with 28 church leaders, and we spent 4 days with them. And after we did that, 9 of a particular church was arrested because they'd converted in their country. It was illegal to convert to Christianity. And that pastor we did one training of 28. He has now trained another 120 pastors.
Wow.
So, and these are in closed countries. So you can't put that up. You can't it does make life more difficult. Even those magazines have very limited information, but God's church is growing in the persecuted church countries. And in the Roman Catholic Church in Lebanon at this point in time, they called it the Golden Age after the Syrian War, because so many were coming to faith and having visions and dreams. But now the Lebanese people are coming out of the Orthodox and the Roman Catholic Church, and they are wanting to know more about Jesus. So they're saying that in this terrible time, I don't know if you know what's going on in Lebanon, but it's huge. And what they're now saying is all the young people who are gifted and training and all the young pastors are all in the States. They're all leaving because of the last explosion in the economy and one thing or another. But that's where the church is growing. So you'll not hear true good news stories. But with that, with the mercy of God, also comes the misery of humanity, and the way people are treated is bad. It's terrible.
I actually think, personally, different to Mary on that, COVID has separated us. I think COVID has really brought the world closer, because we're all suffering suddenly. You know, there's no discrimination between wealth. This virus equals and leveled everybody. I think I've seen great things and really difficult things. And I think it's good that COVID has been enough for COVID, because it's a pandemic and millions of people have died. Millions. So it has to be talked about. And I'm not sure, well, you'd know, Pam, that things about the persecuted church, even before COVID, you wouldn't read about it or hear about it very much, unless you're a Christian. And you're linked to something. I think it's very difficult to get the news about how Christians are suffering worldwide because of their faith in Christ. And
yes, no, when I said separated, I didn't. I mean, I think we are combined because of COVID, but I do think that there's been a real lack of news of the rest of the world, even how they're coping with COVID. You know, it's been very, yes, you know, I mean, I haven't heard anything about Russia. How's Russia doing? You know, it's just been very localized, I felt, the news that we've been receiving.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess we have to make the effort to look it up, because, yeah, I mean, I
think one of the big, sorry, yes.
No, I was just going to say, I think COVID has been a real expose for humanity. I think, you know, you were saying earlier about it's a reset. It was good. I never realized how fast I was going, how much I was you're missing the Lord. You know, suddenly had this tremendous time in the last year with the Lord because of COVID, and inspiring me to do certain things for him. And I think it's shaken the Christian church a lot. I think it's something that God has ordained, that the Christian church and people have to reflect on some of the things we've been talking about, relationships and church life, and is it just a habit, and, you know, is it just lip service to me and mask wearing? And I think it's really been amazing how the church has become creative and become much more compassionate and much kinder, and trying to find ways to reach people. It's been persecuted in a way, by COVID, not in the sense you're talking about with open doors, and in a way we can't have what we wanted when we wanted it. So we had to step back and think, hang on a second. A time of peace, as you said before, time of reflection, a time of really enjoying online services. Like, really, like, I can't have what I want, so this is really deeper and this is really more meaningful to me.
I think one of the things we should all start praying for is that the vaccine rollout is getting to countries that really need it. I mean, I read an article about what the situation is like in Brazil, and it's absolutely shocking. So whilst we might all be sitting in our Western society where COVID is managed, there are fewer and fewer. The situation in countries like Brazil, where their health service is not so robust as ours, people are dying, and you get situations where a country like Italy is refusing to export vaccines to Australia, and because the mess that the European Union has made of their own situation. So I think, you know, we should be really praying that countries like Africa, you know, these real third world countries, because until we all have a vaccine available to us, the world is not going to be the same as it has been. And we've really, as countries, have got to be generous. And this COVAX situation, where wealthy countries are giving their vaccines away to poorer countries, I think it's something that's absolutely essential. And I think it's something we should be praying that we are generous. The Western countries are generous anyway.
Amen. Prayed that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really resonated with what you were saying as well, Irene. That churches need to address that whole, and what Pam's saying, mask wearing.
Yeah.
That again is something, Pam, you said people are just talking to you and you're finding out things about people that you've been going to church with for ages. I've had the same experience in our church and outside, like married couples have said, you know, just different people going through different things that you weren't touching their lives somehow, because we can go into church and that can happen, you know. And I'm not being judgmental on anybody. I'm just saying that it's something we personally have to address in ourselves, isn't it?
That we're all on the same playing field. It doesn't really matter who you are, where you come from, or what you have or what you haven't got. You get it, you're sick. And I think as well as that, you know, when you're lonely, the go-to thing is your mobile phone and making an arrangement to go and see somebody properly. We're actually being lonely in COVID and isolated. Your go-to thing is, you know, you could pray about it, or you lift your Bible, or you think on God. Or I've watched movies. Well, I don't really watch a lot of movies, but the other day I watched The Hiding Place, Corrie Ten Boom, and I just thought, you know, courageous Christians. And I watched Spurgeon, the preacher, and these are on YouTube. I just came across them, and I thought, right. And John and I watched on Sunday night. We watched this, and I thought going back and looking at other people who dealt with me. Spurgeon was saying that in London, when he went there, the children were running around the streets like rodents, orphans, and he was horrified. And so I think that, you know, even to go back and to look and see how did they learn, what did they do, and actually they did change, and things did change, and they always went to the Bible. I mean, Corrie Ten Boom going into the concentration camps, smuggling the Bible. And it's an old movie, The Hiding Place. And
yeah, it's a great movie.
It's you know, I think, gosh, they were courageous, and yet because we're PC, can you say Jesus is the only way? You have to be all, you know, wish-washy. And I think no. And in that it says, you know, in the Psalm, when I called you, you answered, you made me bold and stout-hearted. And I thought, praise the Lord, please make me bold and stout-hearted and not be worried about offence. The gospel is offensive. And, you know, let's be happy to say, you know, well, actually, I did struggle with this, and this, but Jesus brought me through this. And, you know, set to non-Christian, you know, we talked to a couple of neighbours down here who are not Christians at all, actually, at all. And they said, well, there's nothing we can do. And I said, well, actually, you know, I believe in prayer, you know, and our daughter, as I said, was a doctor and myself, and she was saying that one of her friends was heavily pregnant and she wasn't allowed to go onto the wards because of COVID. And so she had to do the phone calls to the family who were the critically ill COVID patients who couldn't have visitors. And she'd phone the family and say, well, this is how they're doing. Is there anything specific you'd like us to do with your family? You know, these are dying people with COVID. And one family said to this friend of our daughter's, will you pray with her? Will someone go in and pray with her? And even if you don't think she's aware, go in and pray with her. She'd pray all her life. Please pray with her. So this Rachel put in on her notes, the family have requested prayer. And a couple of days later, she was walking down the corridor and this young male doctor came up and said to her, by the way, read the notes, just to let you know, you can tell that family that I went in with 3 nurses and we had a prayer meeting at the bed of that lady. And she was going to phone. And I was able to, I said, well, you know, when you're lying there dying and you know you're going to face, you're facing the end, this lady wanted prayer. And I told them that story. And they said, that's amazing. But actually, our doctors are not allowed to go in and pray with people. Our doctors are not allowed to go in unless there's, and I've talked to a doctor about that since he said, if there's a Bible beside the bed, you can say, oh, are you a Christian? But you cannot go in and just start praying. Mm-hmm. There was prayer going on in our hospitals with our staff and our doctors and nurses. We're praying over patients. And I think that is something that had been stopped because it's not PC. You can't say a doctor can't do that. But when we took a medical team out to the Middle East and you said to them, look, can we pray with you? And these are all people come to the medical teams. We say, can we pray with you? But, you know, we would be praying to Jesus. They say, yes, please pray. And many of them wept and cried and said, no one had ever offered us prayer before. So I think that the power of prayer and even offering it
Yeah.
Or saying to somebody, I will pray into the situation. You know,
Offering is,
I believe and pray.
Offering is essential.
And people will come back and say, we have one little girl called Poppy, and you can pray for her. She's 9. She's got an aggressive brain tumor. Her parents aren't Christians. And there's a young lay preacher in the Church of England, Church of Ireland, she was saying to her, we'll pray, we'll pray, we'll pray. And the situation kept getting worse. And she can't say, oh, I don't want to say to her, pray anymore because it's getting worse. And the last time the wee girl was in having tests, the woman went to the local church that was beside the hospital and asked the minister there to pray, and then said to this friend, we're going in for another surgery, could you get your friends to pray? And she's not there, but she's on a journey. This is a journey for this lady. And I think there could be lots of journeys. And people who are on long COVID now, who are finding it difficult, who are saying, where's my strength come from? You know, so,
I'm sure lots of those stories will come out more and more and more. I think churches too need to address prayer. I think actually at the end of our church, we started having prayers for people, and that was very often. We had a particular pastor that wanted that, Harry, you know, to initiate that at the end of the service, like you have your service, you're softened, God has spoken to you, you know, and the Spirit of God is moving, and he liked to have prayers after. And I found that's when I got to know people, because people then would say, I'm really burdened with this, my marriage is in trouble, or I'm sick, or, you know, pray with me, you know, rather than rush out the door. That is actually when you can really. But we should put pressure on people to be back at church. And
it comes up naturally, because sometimes you just find that you can't answer anything else. And to say the church, I mean, we are the church. We are the body. And so I think that if you're talking to someone and say, well, look, I really don't know what to say, but I can pray for you because I do believe in prayer. And you know, I do think that just to say that to someone is, oh, well, they're, you know, we've had
I think yes, I would certainly say a lot to people. I think all of us here would say that to people. We pray for them for all sorts of things. Yes. Yeah.
I'm praying for 3 of the ladies in my building at this moment one's fallen, broken a rib, one's got back problems, and one's got something else. And you know, and I tell them, and they're not believers, but they do thank me. These are all women on their own, that they're isolated, and I say, I'm praying for you every day. Thank you. And you know, it's just sowing a seed, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm sure we all do that.
Well, on that note,
11:30, Doreen.
That prayerful note. What a wonderful time together, sisters in the Lord. Precious, precious time. I got a lot to think about. I've been touched deeply by the Lord this morning. I'm sure we all have.
Yeah.
So we bring blessings to everyone. We pray that you have a good rest of the week.
Yeah.
And that we see each other on Sunday, either in person or online, and hear what the Lord has got to say to us and give praise and thanks to Him. And thank you, Pamela. I knew it would be a great blessing. I'm glad so many people were able to join us, strolling in bit by bit. But yeah, we wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Rest. And thank you and bless you.
Thank you so much.